Hello everyone, I am Mariam Javed and in this video I am going to be sharing with you all my journey towards becoming a self-taught artist. I'll be discussing all the details of how I got here, so let's get started. First things first, art or painting to be specific has been a significant part of my life since childhood. I do not remember when I was first introduced to painting because this is something that just always existed since my mother introduced it to me and my sister at a very early age. Back then, of course, I didn't have anything close to the supplies that I have now, neither was I aware of the vast world that could come alive through strokes on a paper. The paints I had at that time were those cheap watercolor pans that barely had any pigmentation. We used to paint on an A4 sized print paper if we were lucky, or would just paint on any random paper. I would try to make some patterns and swirls that would usually just tear apart the paper and was always disappointed in myself as my art seemed extremely unreal to me because I did not know a whole genre called abstract art existed. At that time, my grandmother would get a huge calendar at the start of each year, and my sister and I would take turns as each month passed to paint on the back of the calendar paper. Those used to be about a size 3, about a size A3, or maybe a little bigger, so it was something we really looked forward to. One of those months, it was my sister's turn to get the calendar paper, and she painted an elaborated waterfall painting at the back of it, and that was probably the biggest pivoting moment for both our art, as that was the first time I thought that I could also paint something like that, and so, being the younger sister, I shamelessly copied her painting a gazillion times. Then, in the upcoming years, I lost contact with the artist within myself and barely painted anymore. That was until one day my mother gave a set of oil paints to my elder sister that she herself had received at a young age but had never dared to use. Again, those paints, in which only some colors functioned all these years later, were used on a calendar paper, and then finally we visited an art store and got the needed supplies. There was also an institute there that held about 2 to 3 month long courses, art courses, so my sister got enrolled in a course, and I took my first and only art course ever, which was sketching. My first sketchbook has got to be here somewhere, and yes, this is my first sketchbook, and all the drawings made in that course are here. You can see there's a range of things like cubes and boring boxes and pots and glasses sketched in a different sizes here. I don't think I learned much from that course as I still cannot sketch to save my life, but maybe that is because I found sketching to be really boring. Then I bought a canvas of my own, my very first canvas, and tried oil painting for the first time. I remember copying an abstract painting from the internet, which looking back I find extremely stupid because, as much as I stand behind the idea that you get the best at art through copying, I don't think this applies to abstract art because abstract art, I feel, is a reflection of the artist and you cannot copy that. It's different for everyone and would really lose its charm if it isn't so. Anyways, that painting was a disaster, and it being a disaster was a lesson and a reminder that abstract art cannot be copied, and so I painted something else over it, which was again abstract, but this was an idea that belonged to me. And then in that something else, the oil paint cracked because I had zero idea about the consistency of oil paint in layering. I would stubbornly paint over the cracks, but they would reappear each time. So, this is one of the examples of the fact that you are going to make 1,000 of mistakes before you reach the level as an artist where you wish to see yourself. And really, there isn't any way to avoid this, and that is completely fine and something that happens to all of us. And honestly, you learned far better from mistakes than from anything else. Around the same time, I made my first Instagram account and got to see a whole another world of artists over there. I then followed some tutorials from two YouTube channels, which were acrylic painting techniques and color by Felix. I made impasto paintings and abstract backgrounds and learned to paint trees from the acrylic painting techniques channel and learned about blending, reflections, skies, and clouds from the Felix channel. There was one major difference though, which was that both these channels painted in acrylics, whereas I applied all their techniques in oils. To be honest, the only reason I preferred oils at that time was because I didn't have the money to invest in acrylics, and I had a few acrylic colors with which I had tried painting and found blending to be an impossible task. So, even though my impatient self was always frustrated with how long oils took to dry, I still stuck with them. I didn't paint very frequently back then because I was also doing my A levels and also had a job at the time. Then came the pandemic, and during the pandemic, I hit my lowest low in July 2021 as I had completed my A levels, left my job, and also hadn't started university yet. because I didn't want to study online. So one day, while talking to a really close friend, I decided to go back to painting and try and paint every day. And I am glad she convinced me to do so, because if not for her, I wouldn't be here in my art journey at the moment. So from August 2021 was the time I painted the most I'd ever done. I would make a new painting in acrylics every day in my sketchbook. And coming back to painting this time, I realized I had gotten better without practicing much. The reason for this was that I would watch so many painting videos and time lapses, and even though I watched them not with the intention of learning, my brain had stored all that knowledge somewhere, and I had developed a skill without knowing. The reason I chose acrylics this time was because I didn't want to deal with the mess that oils created, and because cleaning acrylic brushes is a lot easier. Also, a complete painting in my sketchbook each day gave me the motivation to keep going. Had I painted in oils at that time, I probably wouldn't have continued the habit that long, because completing an oil painting takes so much longer than completing an acrylic one, as you need to wait in between layers for them to dry, and you need to be really patient with it, or else it all gets ruined. If not for that, I wouldn't have continued the habit just out of pure laziness to clean the brushes every day and the smell of oils. By November, I had gotten so much better at my painting skills and was so proud of myself. Then in January 2022, I started the 100-day painting challenge, and that was the first time I started this YouTube channel as well. I would paint, edit, and post every day. I wasn't able to complete the challenge and stopped at day 96 or 97, but that is something I'll talk about later in another video, as there's so much that happened around that time that I cannot bring myself to talk about yet. Then came another break in my art as I had picked up another hobby, which was jewelry making. After that, I went into university and decided to continue my education, and classes started in October 2022, and I again couldn't find as much time to paint. But my hobby was still a priority, and I tried to paint something each week. So around that time, I started the Food Paint Challenge, which is hosted by Ella Genuza. I really hope I am pronouncing that correctly. It's hosted by her on Instagram. I had always admired her painting style and had wanted to take part in her challenge since forever. She posts a prompt each week, so making one painting a week also suited my timetable. So from then till now, I painted lots of food paintings. Some of them are on my Instagram account, and some are in a sketchbook, still waiting to be photographed someday. In 2022, I had painted six dreamy seascapes that I had loved the experience, and I wanted to paint more, but couldn't find the time for it. So now I've made it a priority to make more of those and try to film as much of the process as possible for me. So that's the journey of me as a self taught artist. If you have watched the video till here, then I am glad that my journey was interesting to someone and hopefully was inspiring for you as well. Best of luck to you wherever you are in your journey. If you're someone who's considered painting but has never picked up brush, please have a little faith in yourself and try it out. There's so many free resources out there. Maybe check out the channels that help me or look around and find artists that inspire you. I promise this is the one thing you wouldn't regret doing ever. If you like this video, please consider giving this video a thumbs up and subscribing to my channel. Bye!